Have you ever come home from a long voyage and felt like a guest in your own life? I'm a container ship captain, 46 years old, a sailor since 22, a captain since 38, commanding a steel giant that weighs over 200,000 tons and stretches the length of 4 football fields. The company's based out of Houston, and I live, or used to live, a bit north, in Pasadena, Texas. But more on that later. Name's Jonathan Miller. My crew just calls me Cap. I run a Panamax-class vessel on a standard route, Long Beach to Singapore, then Yokohama, back through the Panama Canal. 2.5 months at sea, 3 weeks ashore. A cycle. Life on repeat. Comfortable. Predictable. Or it used to be. My wife's name is Sarah. Or was. Saying my wife doesn't feel accurate anymore. We met in college. I was in Maritime Academy in Galveston. She studied accounting at UT Austin. We crossed paths at a friend's barbecue. She floored me with her laugh, and that light in her, like summer, followed her everywhere. Believe it or not, she walked up to me first, asked what it was like to live on water. I said, so far, it beats land. She laughed and said, then I guess I'll be the one waiting on the shore. That was it. We were off and running. She always knew I'd be at sea. Never complained. She supported me, wrote letters, sent photos of herself holding signs like, waiting for the captain. Even on my first voyage as a married man, just 3 months into it, she met me at the port with a thermos of coffee and a poster in hand. 20 years passed. We never had kids, not because we didn't want to, just life. Sarah handled books for a few small businesses, worked from home. I did my best to make up for my absences. Flowers on every birthday, long video messages, gifts from Singapore or Rotterdam. She seemed content. Or she played the part. My last voyage started like all the others. I flew out to California in early February. The vessel was docked at Long Beach Terminal, loading electronics, textiles, and 2 containers of lithium batteries. Those always require special attention. The crew was familiar. Alexei, the watch engineer from Florida by way of Odessa, and my first mate Thomas, an old salt with 30 years at sea, reliable as a welded bulkhead. The weather was calm. We eased out into the Pacific right on schedule. Sarah texted normally that first week. Our internet on board is satellite-based, slow as molasses. A single email might take a full minute to load. Video calls? Rare as eclipses. But she messaged. Sent photos of her breakfast or walking our old dog, Chester. Then shadows crept in. First, she messaged less often. Crazy busy at work, she'd say. Then came short replies. Emojis. Thumbs up. No more voice notes. Just text. No, love you. No, can't wait. And me? I was in the middle of the Pacific, out of signal for 3 days at a time, crossing flat water and checking my phone daily. Maybe she wrote something? The crew noticed I'd gone quiet. Usually, after my watch, I'd drop into the galley, tell stories about near misses off the Philippines or argue with Thomas about who cooked better, Americans or Koreans. But not this time. I stayed in my cabin, looking at logs, charts, walls. It wasn't a specific thing that worried me. It was the silence. I knew my wife. She wrote even when she had migraines, even during stressful times. But now, nothing. And that nothing started to roar. One night, sailing off the coast of Japan, I woke drenched in sweat. Dreamed Sarah was at home, but she wasn't alone. A man's hand was resting on her shoulder. And she was smiling. Not at me. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. It was 3:12 a.m. I remember because I looked at the clock and told myself, just a nightmare. That's all. But the next morning, I got a message. 1. Short. Cold. We need to talk when you get back. No, hey. No, love you. Nothing. I must have read it 20 times. Deleted it. Opened it again. It burned. Because I knew conversations that start like that never end well. And right then, for the first time in 20 years at sea, I felt like I was truly sinking. If you think the worst storm is somewhere out in the South China Sea, wait until it hits your own life. At first, the sea felt like a rescue. After that short message from Sarah, we need to talk, I didn't reply. I couldn't. What was I supposed to say? Okay. Are you cheating on me? Or just, I figured it out? No. I chose silence. And the ocean, well, it knows how to hold silence better than anyone. Out there, in the open sea, you're cut off from the world. It's like stepping into another dimension. No neighbors, no traffic, no Wi-Fi dragging you into a rabbit hole of endless scroll. Just wind, waves, and your thoughts circling overhead like gulls that never land. We were skimming the southeast coast of China, bound for Singapore. 1 week until our next port. 1 week with no signal. 1 week alone with myself. Every evening I went up to the top deck. Just stood there. Sometimes with coffee, sometimes a cigarette. Watching the sun melt into the water. And thinking, what did I miss? Maybe I was at sea too long. Maybe I'd turned into a stranger in my own home. I didn't do dishes, didn't take out the trash, didn't know what shows she watched. My voice popped into the house through Bluetooth once in a while, but she was living a real life. Without me. But we hadn't fought. There hadn't been cheating. Not before. No signs. We were a team. Or so I thought. As the ship crept through the South China Sea, I tried to stay a captain. Checked logs. Routes. Port clearance forms. Everything by the book. But inside, I felt like someone else was sitting in my place. Smaller. Cracked. One evening, I stepped down to the mess hall. The guys were talking about an accident in the Suez Canal. Someone had the news on that old wall-mounted TV. I sat down like everything was fine. But my first mate, Thomas, noticed the way I stared at the screen, like I wasn't really seeing it. He placed his hand on the table, didn't even look at me. Wife. I lifted my eyes. She sent a message, I said quietly. Long one. One sentence. He nodded. Not surprised. Yeah. Same thing happened to me. Back in '03. Except mine came in by fax. I let out a breath that could have passed as a laugh. That was the moment I realized something heavy gets lighter when someone else has carried it too. Thomas told me how his wife left while he was sailing from Bremen to La Paz. Just packed up, left the keys in the mailbox and a note. I can't wait anymore. When he came back, all that was left was bare walls and 2 coffee mugs forgotten on a shelf. We're like old lighthouses, John, he said. Easy to spot from far away, but no one ever really comes close. That line hit me like a wrench to the ribs. A day later, we entered a signal zone. I knew what would happen. The satellite would catch up and dump everything it had stored. Sure enough, I sat in my cabin, phone in hand, hands trembling. I couldn't even type my passcode right on the first try. 25 messages from Sarah. But don't get your hopes up. Not one of them started with, I'm sorry. The first, hope everything's good out there. Took Chester to the park. The weather's weird. Then, some weird issue with the bank card. Can you call when you get a chance? Then, we really do need to talk. I'm confused. And on and on. Scattered. Some sounded like excuses. Others like hints. But none of them had a spine. Just one, sent 3 days ago. You need to know, everything's changed. I'll explain when you're home. But you already feel it, don't you? Yeah, I did. We reached Singapore just as the city was waking up. The sky looked like tin. The water like glass. I stared at the distant cranes lining the port and thought, this is reality. Steel. Process. No surprises. Back home? Chaos and waiting. I didn't leave the ship until evening. Got a coffee from a vending machine in the terminal. Just stood by the fence and watched the streets. I wanted to call, but I couldn't. Something inside me had snapped. I opened my phone, tapped her name, stared at the call button like it was the edge of a cliff. And then a new message. I'm sorry it happened like this. I didn't mean for it to. I just felt lonely. I made a mistake. I hope someday you can forgive me. A mistake? Loneliness? I walked the deck all night like a man pacing a treadmill that never stops. At dawn, I collapsed into the chair in my cabin. Spoke the words out loud for the first time. No, Sarah. I've captained ships through typhoons. But this storm? I didn't chart for this one. And ahead, home. Or at least, what used to be. There's a moment, one only sailors know, when you step off the gangway after a long voyage. Everything looks familiar, the smell of asphalt, the hum of passing cars, people in jeans and sneakers instead of orange vests and hard hats. But you're not really there. Your body's on land, but your soul is still back in the wheelhouse, in the quiet, in the rhythm where everything made sense. I got back to Texas 3 days after offloading in Singapore. 1 full day of travel, Singapore to LA, a layover, then Houston. My cab from the airport was silent. I stared out the window. For the last 10 weeks, I had played this moment over and over in my mind. Walking into the house, Chester charging toward me, Sarah on the porch, eyes glowing, coffee in hand like always. Reality had other plans. The first thing that hit me when I stepped out of the cab? Silence. Windows dark. Mailbox overflowing. No lights. No sound. No sign that anyone was waiting. No Chester. No Sarah. The gate creaked as I pushed it open. My key still worked. That almost surprised me. I stepped inside and froze. The house was gone. Not physically. The walls, the ceiling, the kitchen, the bed, they were all there. But the soul? That was long gone. Everything screamed, this house doesn't live your life anymore. Wine stains on the floor. Empty bottles in the corner. The tablecloth reeked of beer. Ashtray full of cigarette butts. Sarah didn't smoke. A Bluetooth speaker tossed under the couch. Next to a heel. A woman's. But not Sarah's. I walked into the bedroom. Half-empty closet. Makeup gone. Just a lone toothbrush, slouched in its cup like a bad joke. In the bathroom, a different body wash. A man's. Not mine. In the kitchen, a bar receipt. Name, Josh. Date, 2 weeks ago. Pizza, tequila, 6 cocktails. On the fridge, a note in her handwriting. Went to Melissa's. Don't look for me. It's complicated. No signature. That was the moment silence in the house turned deafening. I dropped into a chair. Not from exhaustion. My legs just gave out. My hands shook. I could hear the fridge humming. The ticking clock. The creak of the second floorboards. And nothing else. No music. No voice. No family. I stepped out back for air. To the left, behind the hedge, my neighbor, Mr. Harvey, was mowing his lawn. He spotted me and froze. Turned off the trimmer. Stared like he'd seen a ghost. John, he finally said. What are you doing here? I came back. I answered. Why? He walked closer. His face said it before his mouth did. Sarah said you two divorced. Before your last voyage. Said you were just friends. That you were always gone anyway. I figured you knew. I shook my head slowly. No, Harvey. I didn't know anything. He scratched his head, sighed. Well, you should know this then. While you were gone, there were people. Guys. Sometimes 2 at a time. Parties. Cars in the driveway. Music blasting. Cops came a couple times, neighbors complained. She said she was cutting loose, second youth, doesn't owe anyone anything. His words rang in my head like steel on steel. Doesn't owe anyone anything. I repeated. He nodded. I thought you were in on it, John. Sorry if I overstepped. No, you didn't. Thank you. I walked back into the house like a sleepwalker. Opened the closet. Pulled out a box full of old letters, Sarah's, from when I was away. The ones that said she missed me. Couldn't sleep without my breathing next to her. I flipped through them until the page blurred. Then I went to the garage. Got in the car. Drove to the nearest bar. It smelled like beer and sweat. At the far end sat my old friend Brendan. We started on the same ship once. He's retired now, prefers dry land. I just nodded. He knew. Sarah. He asked. She's gone, I said. Ordered whiskey. By the second pour, I told him everything, messages, the house, the bottles, a guy named Josh, Harvey over the fence. Brendan didn't say a word at first. Then he smirked. Brother, you're a captain. You don't sink. You steer. And he poured again. We drank until closing. Somewhere around midnight, another guy joined us. By his drawl, a Louisiana sailor. Told us his wife ran off with her personal trainer while he was crossing from Hamburg through the Suez. She even had a TikTok, he snorted. #SeamanWantKnow. The 3 of us laughed. Bitter. Male. Laughing through the wound. Then I said, I won't forgive her. Not for the cheating, but for the lying. Every damn day while I was at sea, she sent love, I miss you, and back here? Tequila. Josh. Party of the year. Brendan looked straight at me. Then don't forgive her. But don't go under, either. You've got the wheel, John. Time to steer somewhere new. I left the bar at 3 a.m. Swaying, but clear-headed. Revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes, it's just setting a new course. The morning after that bar night was rough. Not because of the hangover, though it pounded in my skull like a busted diesel at the dock, but because of the emptiness. It lived in everything. In the coffee mug without coffee. In the half-drawn curtain. In what wasn't said. I'd fallen asleep on the couch, fully dressed. Chester, our dog, never showed. I was pretty sure Sarah took him. And for some reason, that stung more than anything else. Even the dog, gone. On the table sat a napkin scribbled with nonsense. Brendan had drawn it toward the end of the night, a sketch of Operation Payback. Looked ridiculous. Arrows, notes like freeze account, cut the power, send her the repair bill for the party damage. But one line stuck out, cold mind, that's your weapon. I put the napkin aside and headed for the shower. Let the hot water run forever. Then put on a clean shirt, jeans. No emotions. Just movement. There was a hollow inside me, but in that hollow, There was a direction. I started simple. Opened my laptop. Logged into the bank. In 2 months, Sarah had withdrawn over $9,000 from our joint account. Some for shopping. Some in transfers to JT. I didn't know who J was, but my gut said that J didn't stand for John. I didn't look further. Just clicked revoke access and moved everything into my private reserve. Next stop, mailbox. Overdue notices, parking fines, a credit card letter. Turns out, Sarah opened a Macy's card in my name. $1,800, cosmetics, shoes, and what looked like a birthday bash. I called. Canceled. Then I checked the utilities account. She hadn't paid the water bill since March. Gas, bare minimum. Internet? Shut off for contract violation. A textbook runner. Living in my house like it was some Airbnb with no checkout time. A house I built. Paid for. While she was out finding herself, I sat at the kitchen table. Pulled out a notebook. Started writing. List the house for sale. Forward my mailing address to a P.O. box. Contact a divorce attorney if she hasn't already done it. Find Chester. Confirm tickets for the next voyage, leaving in 24 days. While I wrote, a message from Sarah popped up. I'll be back in a few days. We need to talk. Please don't do anything drastic. I stared at the screen. Could almost hear her voice. That voice I used to know like my own. Now it sounded like radio static. Background noise. Meaningless. I didn't answer. Just kept writing. That evening, I met Brendan again. Same bar by the car wash. He brought tequila. I waved it off. No alcohol tonight. I needed a clear head, like navigating through zero visibility. Well, he asked. I'm not going to yell, I said. Not going to shame her. Not going to make a scene. So what then? I'm kicking her out. Legally. Quietly. Precisely. I'm selling the house. Freezing the money. Taking the dog. And heading back to sea. When I come back, I start over. Brendan leaned back. Smirked. Hell, that's even better than I imagined. You're turning revenge into a blueprint. I respect that. It's not revenge, I said, shaking my head. It's order. The next day, I visited a real estate office. Woman named Caroline, mid-50s, went through the documents, walked the property. If we list now, there'll be interest, she said. Market's decent. We could close in a month, maybe 2. Want me to handle it for you? Yes. Fast as possible. She understood something. Maybe not everything, but enough. No questions. A professional. I signed the forms. The house was officially on the market. Next stop, lawyer. I visited Larry Chong, an old contact who once helped me with a cargo insurance mess in Panama. He listened carefully, then asked, she file for divorce? I don't know. Then we'll find out. If not, you file. If she already did, you might be able to dispute the financials, especially if there's debt or credit in your name. Do what you can. And find Chester. I want my dog back. Larry nodded. That we can definitely do. I came back home and went into the bedroom. Bits of Sarah's stuff were still scattered around. I packed it into a box. Topped it with a photo, us in New Mexico, 2011. Back when she looked at me like I was her anchor. I sealed the box. Wrote on the top with a marker, pick this up when you can. This house is no longer yours. I left it in the foyer. Then I sat on the porch steps. Watched the sun go down. And for the first time in a long while, there was no pain inside me. There was direction. Sometimes in a war with betrayal, your best weapons are silence and structure. And Sarah? She had no idea that the house she was planning to return to was already gone. 2 days after I put the house on the market, she came back. No fanfare. Just the click of a key in the lock. I was sitting on the porch, sipping coffee. Early morning. The air still cool, birds screaming in the neighbor's tree like they already knew. Something was about to unfold. Sarah walked in, didn't see me at first. Then she stepped out onto the porch and stopped. You're here, she said softly. I didn't answer. Took a sip. Inside, pure calm. Not anger. Not sadness. Just exhaustion. We need to talk. I nodded, stood up without a word, walked inside. She followed. We sat at the kitchen table. The same place we once had dinners. Breakfasts. Plans. Now, just negotiations. I messed everything up, she began. I didn't want it to be like this. I just couldn't handle things. You were gone. I felt like I had no life. Then someone came along, and I thought it was just friendship. But she looked me in the eyes. And for the first time in months, I saw her unsure. His name's Jay. He's not important right now. I don't know what's going to happen with him. But I didn't mean to hurt you. I just didn't know how to say it. How to explain. You told people we were divorced, I said. She flinched. Who told you that? Harvey. Over the fence. Thought I was a ghost. Sarah looked down. I was ashamed. I lied so people wouldn't ask questions. You took $9,000 from our account. Open credit in my name. Through parties. Then left. No goodbye. She didn't speak. Just stared into her cup, like the answer might be there. I listed the house, I went on. I'm going back to sea in 10 days. 3 weeks ashore, then another run. Everything here? It's the past now. She looked up. And there it was, an expression I hadn't seen in years, confusion. You're kicking me out? I'm letting you go. You already left. I'm just closing the door. She said nothing. Then got up, walked to the front hall, saw the box with her things and a photo on top. You kept this? She asked, holding the New Mexico picture. Until recently. Now it doesn't matter. She packed that same day. Chester came with her, saw me, barked, then wagged his tail and ran to me. Head to my knee. I scratched his ears, looked at her. He stays. She nodded. No argument. She left without drama. Just left. Like everything had already burned, and there was no point lighting another match. The next few days were for business. Filed for divorce, officially. Forwarded my address to a P.O. box. Packed what mattered, old books, my uniform, a few photos, the compass my dad gave me. 5 days later, Caroline, the realtor, called. We've got a buyer. Solid offer. Do you want to sign in person or by proxy? Proxy, I said. I'll be at sea. That last night, I walked Chester around the block. In my pocket was the printed route. Galveston, Rotterdam, Antwerp, Los Angeles. 4 months at sea. And no one writing, can't wait for you to come home. And for the first time in years, that was okay. Not painful. Not empty. Just new. I didn't seek revenge. Didn't burn bridges. My victory was that I left without breaking. That I took the wheel of my life again. Quietly. Without drama. Without fire. The morning I left, I stepped onto the porch. There was a box. Inside, old letters from Sarah. Our wedding album. I took it to the trash. Not with hatred, but with peace. It had its place. But that place was no longer here. I reached the port a day before departure. My cabin was clean. New crew. New course. I sat by the porthole, staring at the water. Chester stayed with Brendan. I'd write him letters. He, unlike people, knows how to wait. When the ship pulled from the dock, I walked up to the bridge. The wind hit my face. And I smiled. Let's go, old girl, I said aloud. We've got miles ahead. Losing a home is hard. But losing yourself? Worse. I came back, not to where I was expected, but to where I belonged, the course.